Destiny, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Of course, I love to be here with you, Vivian. Thank you so much.
So the WETATi convention is coming up on Tuesday. It's next Tuesday. So
I know.
how are you gearing up for this convention, especially with your protege, Adriel?
Well, I'm gearing up by just making sure that I have all my ducks in rows, crossing all my T's, dotting all my I's, anything last minute that needs to be done. If there's time, if there's a way, having it be done. Because these kind of things happen once a year. And so you don't want to miss that opportunity to making sure that, oh, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. So just like Santa, checking my list twice, making sure that there's nothing that I could have not done.
So what are specific things that you do with Adriel to get him ready for this competition?
Well, so Adriel has a fashion-based idea, and because I go to the Fashion Institute of Technology in NYC and I study visual communication design, I'm using everything that I've learned so far in the field, like with styling, movies and music videos, and in the classroom with learning fashion design and stuff like that. I'm just making sure that even though he's only in eighth grade, I'm holding him to a industry level, because once you start to implement that from a young age, a lot of times people don't know that, but with artistic fields, like going to an artistic school, I was lucky because they look more at my potential, but you have to have a portfolio to apply to the school. And so a lot of artistic and more liberal positions, you have to have some type of field work, some type of paperwork to show that you have high potential outside of just saying, yeah, I went to school. So I'm trying to make sure that with teaching him and going through all the questions, all the slides on the presentation with him, that he's not only answering it, but he's able to apply it to how he starts to think about any task that he does going forward.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And I think that it's great that you are holding him to an industry level, because it is, like you said, it is beneficial to him, because he might want to propel his love for fashion into to greater heights, and just
Yeah.
ingraining that at a young age is very important. So I first want to start with you now. How did you get into fashion? And what was
Okay.
yeah.
So oddly enough, I've always was like, I'm not gonna go into fashion. Like, it's so weird because, being black, usually, especially in the DMV, whenever you're creative, the first thing they go into is fashion. Like, they'll just create a brand and put words on a t-shirt and be like, yeah, buy from me. And I'm always like, what's that about? And I'm the type to overthink, and I always try and do everything with intention. So like that, I thought that was just having a brand. I thought that designers were just overpricing stuff, and I never really like came to understand like the value. And so, like shows with True Jackson VP, and so
That was
yeah,
my
so
show.
I know, like, it's really crazy to think like how I ended up becoming her, you know what I mean? And why representation is so important. And part of, picking what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, I wanted to make sure that whatever I did help fight the good fight and was beneficial to helping other Black people. And I feel like a lot of times it's not really thought of, it's always thought of, oh, you have to go into a political field, an activist field, when that's not necessarily true. Whenever you're doing your best as a Black person and you're killing it, whatever field you're in, it makes history. You know what I mean? Like Jackie Robinson, he wasn't a president, but he still makes history. You know what I mean? So stuff like that. And I actually have always been very vain. Okay. I love makeup, hair, clothes, all of that. And I wanted to monetize it because sometimes, like, as a girl, you're taught to be vain, and you have to like kind of get to know yourself and know the difference between what you're being taught and what you actually like. And I know it was like, okay, regardless of what society tries to tell me I should be like, I know that for a fact, if men looked at me, if women looked at me, if nobody could look at me, I would still want to put myself together. So between that and then learning the cultural value of how you present yourself, I took this African fashion and textiles class, and I learned about like how empire came about and different African designers, symbols, motifs, and how that's been misrepresented through the fashion world. And I just saw a place for me to make change. And I saw a passion in myself that I didn't know. And I was like, yeah, I want to go into fashion.
I think it's a very inspiring story, and it's a lot something that a lot of girls can relate to. Like I want to go back to your point about us being taught to be vain. Like when a lot of people say, "Oh, like you're a girl, you're only supposed to like do makeup and dresses and play dress up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hair," like as if women aren't meant to do other things besides those things. So I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying about that, and I feel like it's really inspiring how you mesh your two worlds together, like being Nigerian and being American. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that and how you like incorporate that into your fashion, like you said with your African textiles class.
Yeah. So felt like I've always felt like being African was a flex, but growing up, that was not always the case. And so now with the African diaspora trending, with Afrobeats are now being played on the radio, and all these different like musical artists are like collabing with African artists, wearing African designers, and it's like, you know, I've always thought that way, and sometimes it's not always genuinely represented. And so I felt like, okay, a lot of these people out here, they're saying, yeah, Africa to the world, African diaspora, we all come from there, but they're only profiting off of what's trending. And I feel like there's room where there's not really somebody who can, because a lot of times being African, if you notice, we're the only ones, especially Nigerians, we're the only ones where we're tested on how African we are. Someone of Korean descent, like let's say another Asian person's like, oh, where you from? They're like, oh, Korea. Okay, they're not about to quiz them on how Korean they are. But let you meet another African, they'll usually quiz you on like, are you really African or are you Akata? You know what I mean? It's stuff like that. And so I wanted to show that it's okay. I am Nigerian. I feel like I'm just as Nigerian as the next person. I may not have been born and grew up there, but I definitely feel like that's a major part of who I am. But at the same time, I'm also very American. And I was born here, I grew up here, and I love both the American side and the African side. And I feel a lot of times we're pressured to choose one because we feel like having one dismisses the other. And that comes in layers where it's like you're going to want to dismiss your African side because that's not something to be proud of. You know what I mean? America nonetheless is the West, so it can make it seem as, oh, you're trying to be of higher value. You don't want to mess with people like that lives in huts. And so by me encouraging myself to embrace my Nigerian American identity, it's helping to change the narrative that Africa's poor, Africa's a third world country. Africa, well, first of all, Africa isn't even a country. Let's start there. You know what I mean? And so I feel like with the hyper femininity that will come from my American side and the culturalness and hyper femininity that comes with being African, overall, my goal is to educate and to just try and make way for other girls of immigrant status or coming here and just feeling like, okay, there is a place for me. And regardless of one country not, one continent not accepting me, another continent not accepting me, there's a whole new group. And I really want to focus on the diaspora of it all.
Yeah, I since I'm Nigerian too, I really growing up being African was not a flex. It
Not at
really
all.
wasn't. Because I felt like I was too African for like the other African
Yeah.
Americans and like too American for my relatives back home in Nigeria. So
Yeah.
it was just like hard to find a like a safe space for me and to be
Hmm.
myself. So I
Hmm.
really admire you for creating that space where
Well,
you're
thank
meshing the
you.
two together and
Yeah.
showcasing like, hey, I'm Nigerian, but I'm still like, yeah, I was born in America, and like
Yeah.
you can be both at the same time
Yeah.
without and being unapologetic about it. And
Hmm.
so a lot of I feel like a lot of your entrepreneurial spirit, I feel like it came from your family and like
Of
just
course.
how of course and how you guys created WETATi together. So I just wanted to ask you, how has WETATi personally impacted you?
WETATi's definitely been a major impact on my life, and I didn't even come to terms with how much it really changed my life in terms of recently. I'm a second year in college and I'm going into my second year. And within the first year, I did it at home. And so also while being at home, I was able to take part in styling an upcoming feature film called Don't Call Me Akata. And so being on that set, being around producers, being around models, being around actors, it really showed me like all these people were multi, they had multiple streams of income, and a lot of them were a bit younger. And I was like, wow, like that's really crazy. And it just made me think about WETATi and how like from day one they were always preaching about, look, if you want to touch a certain kind of money at a young age, the time is now. And I feel like a lot of times younger people shy away from work. I'm definitely one of them. And so I think it's more so WETATi's message can get misinterpreted. It's not so much come and work early, but it's come and find yourself early. Because I definitely feel like from me trying and doing hair and doing makeup and just all kinds of different stuff, even DJing at one point, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of that has to do with WETATi. And because I was growing up in a household that constantly told me, like, look, if you want to be this person, you just have to figure that out a bit earlier. And that's not something that's easy. A lot of people, it takes them well into their 30s, well into after they've had children, they're married, you know, they've on their second marriage. And so having WETATi as a place I can call home is a blessing that I don't really think that I would ever trade, like I could ever put into words, because being able to recognize being able to recognize my own mother as someone that started it, especially my mother, you know, coming from Nigeria, she didn't just come, she came in like the 80s. And that's a very more racial time, a very more unforgiving time for Black women, especially Black women from another country. And so to see her try multiple things, because it's different when you're looking at somebody else that people tell you to do a research paper on, because all you really find out is about the good stuff and you get to look up to them. But I've seen my mother go through trials and tribulations just to have WETATi have one convention, a second convention, a third convention. And so to see her really start from not really knowing how she's going to make change, but knowing that she did want to make change for other people, less fortunate and fortunate, and seeing her be able to do that definitely has given me the hope and the personal example I needed of not only a Black woman doing it, but an African Black woman doing it.
Yeah, I definitely admire your mother as well, because she does like inspire so the next generation to just be themselves and to monetize that and to achieve their dreams. And it's just, you don't really see that every day, especially in our culture where we are put in a box a lot, especially women. Like there are times where it's like, oh, you have to be a nurse or a doctor or even just be a housewife.
Get me started.
Yeah, like, or just even be a housewife. Like women are set to just cook, clean, and that's it. But women especially are more than that, and they should be, and their skills do need to be explored more. And your mom is an example of that. And yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying by that. And lastly, you talked about it a little bit, but how important is it for young people to chase their dreams right now instead of when they get older?
I cannot stress this enough, because something I personally deal with is looking onto other people's journeys, and everybody has their own. And so, especially in this day and age where everything's documented, there's literally not a thing that goes on this world now that you probably can't find on the internet. And that's only going to get worse with time and as technology progresses. So I feel like there's so much that you can take in, and there's so much that you can use to your benefit to figure out virtually if you like it or not. Because the way the education system is set up, those who know what they want to do early get farther in life. Like, especially musicians. So people that want to become like classical composers, composers for movies, soundtracks, they're already going to specialized high schools, specialized elementary schools, where you're learning specifically about music and stuff like that. And I feel like You just have to give yourself the space and the time to find out who you are, and especially find out who you are without the fear of judgment of others. Because there's often been times where I was figuring out who I was, and loved ones, friends were like, sis, you sure that's for you? Because that doesn't sit right with me. And I can't stress enough how important it is to just genuinely follow what you believe is the right path for you. As long as it's leading with love and justice and genuine, being genuine, I feel like it's always going to be okay, and you'll see it to the end. And if it doesn't look bright in the beginning, that's okay, because you don't know what you even setting on that journey will bring about, where you're the first person to everything to create something that no one would have even thought of, and you wouldn't even have thought of if you didn't take that first step of deciding to go on a journey for yourself.
So thank you so much, Destiny, for talking to me today and just talking about, you're amazing. You're just phenomenal. And I just hope that young people follow in your footsteps and really understand what you are like talking about right now when it comes to just living in your truth and not listening to the negativity and just achieving your dreams. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I
On
really
my go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, on my business pages on Instagram at Princess Destiny Official, I always make sure to talk in the captions, not just saying like, oh, today's mood, today's fit. I always give breakdowns about what it means to be yourself, and showing like actual footage of people in Nigeria that inspired my designs, and talking about just what it means to the next generation to see things through. And so you can literally see throughout on all my websites and my Instagram pages that I actually practice what I preach. So, yeah.
I'll put your at on the screen so you get
Okay.
it. I got you.
Thank
I
you.
got you. All right, thank you so much, Destiny. See you at the convention, girl.
Of course. I can't wait to see how you pop out. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.